Hello, hello, and welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I'm Marianne St Clair. I am your modern day muse, and I am here with a special guest today to talk about some things that are near and dear to my heart, and that I think you will love this topic too, as much as I do. So I'm going to introduce my friend, Edie Weinstein, and I would love for Edie to tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm honored to finally be speaking voice to voice. You and I have been Facebook friends for a number of years, and we had our first actual voice conversation about a week or so ago when we were plotting and scheming for this interview. So I'm thrilled to finally be able to speak like this and to speak to your audience. I give myself a number of different titles. I'm a Renaissance woman. I'm a professional hyphenate. I'll explain what that means in a minute. And I also say that I'm professionally polyamorous. What that means is that I've never in my adult life, to the best of my recollection, had only one job at a time. I have overlapping jobs. So the list goes like this: licensed social worker, hyphen, psychotherapist, hyphen. Okay, and I'm not going to say hyphen again because you get the picture. So licensed social worker, psychotherapist, ordained interfaith minister, journalist, book author. My book is called The Bliss Mistress Guide to Transforming the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. I'm also a speaker. I'm a PR and marketing person, and I'm the founder of this really cool group called Hug Mobsters Armed with Love. And I'll explain more about what that means later on in the interview.
I just love when you said professionally polyamorous. I'm going, I didn't know that about you. But then in the explanation, I know all those things about you. So I've never heard anybody bring it to the context of their work. And I love it because it allows you to come fully into and not pigeonhole and box yourself into the role that you're playing as one of those. So I love it. Thank you for really giving us a place where we can all step into more of our hats than just one.
Right. Well, the other part of it that just occurred to me is that in the same way that people in polyamorous relationships with other human beings have ideally full disclosure, they're not needing to choose and say, okay, I have to have this person in my life without this person. Whenever anybody in my life has suggested that I stop doing some of what I'm doing, there's a panic, like, oh, no, you can't make me stop writing, speaking, teaching, doing therapy. You can't take that away from me. So I like to think that just like, again, in romantic relationships, it's called ethical non-monogamy. I have ethical non-monogamy when it comes to my work. They all know, the different roles all know what the other ones are up to.
I just love it. Because for me, it's like, okay, transitioning from being called a coach to bringing forth the muse. It's like I can bring all of me. I can bring the coach, the muse, I can bring the massage therapist, I can bring, the photographer, all these different aspects. And I don't have to be called just one. I love that freedom. I just love how you put that into a context. Thank you so much for that gift.
Pleasure.
It can allow other people to fully show up and not have to say no to part of themselves, whether or not, like you said, it's in relationships or whether or not it's in their careers. They can fully embrace and not have to feel bad about being all of themselves to the world.
Right.
Great. So tell me a little bit about this thing that I want to talk about, your recent TED Talk.
Yep.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. On October 1st of 2022, I got to live out a long-term dream. I did my first TEDx talk, and I say first because I think there are probably more coming, in Lima, Ohio. And the focus of the theme of the event was humanity. So the subject that I spoke about was ideal. It was called Overcoming the Taboo of Touch. And roll back the clock to the mid 1980s, and I'm in grad school, Rutgers University in Camden, New Jersey, working on my MSW, Master of Social Work. And in my second year, I think the end of the first year, beginning of the second year, I started working on a paper, a project, something that earned me some scholarship money, called Counseling Practitioners' Views on Using Touch as a Therapeutic Modality. Now, in the counseling field, we're told, you don't touch your clients, taboo. And the reasons we were told was transference, countertransference. Some of our clients are abuse survivors, trauma survivors. So touch is triggering for some people, sexualizing of touch, boundaries, all of those things. And when I was talking to my advisor back then, I was a little nervous because I thought she would agree with that. And she said, no, let's look at how it can, why touch is essential. So I looked into some studies having to do with the importance of touch. There was a study about Romanian babies and orphans who failed to thrive because they didn't get touch beyond a bottle shoved in their mouth and diaper change. They weren't cuddled, they may not have been sung to, they weren't held, they weren't comforted. And as a result, they failed to thrive and some of them died. So just like babies fail to thrive when they're not getting enough touch, we do too. Lots of lonely people out there. And interestingly, that was the first time I ever used a computer. I was doing statistical analysis. So remember, back in the 1980s, and I had to do my research in the library because there was no Google, there was no internet. And I used that as kind of a springboard for the talk. And then I tied into it some work that I do with, and I'll tell you more about Hug Mobsters Armed with Love after that. But the process of the TEDx talk was a remarkable journey. I think it was in 2009. I saw a TED talk that Elizabeth Gilbert gave. Elizabeth is the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and a bunch of other books. And she was talking about creativity and the creative muse. And I thought, that's how I feel about creativity as well. And I said, I'm going to be up there on that big stage someday. And so I kept the thought here and the feeling here. And like anything else that I've ever created in my life, I took the steps necessary to get there. I started watching other talks. I started talking to people who did TED Talks. And in what year was it? 2021, I was connected with a coach named Cesar Cervantes. Cesar is a stage performer, a comic, and a TEDx coach, TED coach. And I said, I'm going to invest time and money into this because I really want this. And I watched a TED Talk by, oh my goodness, I'm having a middle-aged moment, Stacey Abrams, who's run for governor a few times in Georgia and is pivotal in Democratic elections. And hers was about how to create what you want. And the first question is, why do I want it? Or no, first question is, what do I want? Second question is, why do I want it? Third question is, how do I get it? So I applied all of those things. I wanted it, number one, because there's some ego here that I really want to be on the big stage. I've been a speaker for 30 some years and it's time, it's my time. And also I wanted to communicate a message. What the TED folks say, the motto is ideas worth spreading. Mm-hmm. And the idea of safe, nurturing, consensual touch is an idea worth spreading. Okay. And then the third is, how do I get there? What's that? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an idea.
So how do I get there was talking to somebody with a proven track record of helping people get TED Talks. So I started working with him one-on-one in the weekly mastermind group meeting, and he helped me craft the talk and the pitch for the talk. So what you do is you look up wherever they're offered all over the world. And my agreement with myself is that it had to be within driving distance because I didn't want to fly during the pandemic. And I'm not afraid of flying, but just I wanted to feel safer that way. So this one was in Ohio. So it was a 9-hour drive for me, but I pitched like 20 stages. And this was the first one that said yes. So this was in October of last year.
2022.
No, April. I'm sorry. April. I started working with him in October of 2021. I'm sorry. And then in April of 2022, I got the thumbs up from the stage in Ohio. And then I had the next 6 months to prepare for it for October of 2022. And I'm comfortable speaking on stage. I'm comfortable speaking like this.
Yes.
Thousands of people, no problem. But I started getting, the imposter syndrome, panic, like, oh my God, what if I lose my voice? Because I do get laryngitis occasionally. What if I can't memorize the talk? Because that's something to know too, is that there are no cue cards, there is no teleprompter. You have to memorize it, but not make it sound like you memorized a speech.
Yeah.
It has to sound authentic. And I'm 64 years old, and I've noticed in the last few years, my memory isn't as sharp as it used to be. So I said, all right, I'm going to practice constantly. I'm going to talk to other people who are stage performers, who are actors. I'm going to ask them how they did this. And the one cool trick that I did is that I would wake up in the middle of the night while I was still in like halfway dream state,
Beta.
and I'd run it through in my head and until I fell back to sleep. So I recorded it. I did a Zoom recording to practice. I practiced with friends and family. And when the day arrived, I knocked it out of the park. I forgot a few things, but we were told by the coaches on that stage, nobody's going to hold your script. Nobody's going to know word for word what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
So,
only you are.
Right. And afterwards I went, oh shoot, I missed that, but it was okay. It didn't lose anything because of that. And the cool thing is you meet people, if you do this, from all over the country. The people that were doing their presentations the same time that I was, same day that I was, we got to know each other gradually over the months because we had regular group coaching sessions and we rehearsed with each other. And these were remarkable people, and I'm still in touch with some of them.
Nice. Nice. So, Edie, why is that subject? Why is consensual touch? Why is the taboo of touch? I know why it is for me, because I carry a lot of the same belief that you do, that you researched and you found. I feel that in our society today, that we're touch deprived, that we are a touch deprived world, that, and even, it just got like elevated by off the moon with the pandemic. And why are you so passionate about it though?
First of all, I grew up in a home where there was nurturing touch by consent. My parents, my sister and I, extended family, very touchy-feely people, lots of hugs and cuddles. Nobody left our house, including our friends, without a hug or a kiss from my parents. Or nobody came in without that. So I thought, that's just normal. Everybody's family's like that. Well, they're not. For a lot of people, touch is either sexual, abusive, limited, coercive, or non-existent. And when I mention the coercive part, this is about, in some ways, children and touch. We're taught, our generations, go hug Aunt so-and-so. What if you didn't want to hug Aunt so-and-so? What if she smelled like cigarettes and you didn't want to be near that? Or, I hated having
creepy vibes, right?
Yeah. What's that? Say it again.
What if you got creepy vibes?
Yeah.
Kids are so intuitive, they don't want to go. Them.
Right. So I teach children, including my grandchildren. You don't have to, the baby is 8 months old, so I don't think she gets it, but my grandson is almost 3. And from the very beginning, my son and daughter-in-law and I and the other grandparents, we're all on the kid care team, would say, rather than go hug, Bubby is Yiddish for grandmother, so that's what my name is with the kids. Go hug Bubby. I'll say, do you want to hug Bubby? Sometimes Dean would say no. So we give him a touch menu, like, okay, high fives, fist bumps, or blow kisses. So can you do one of those? And he would always choose, usually blowing kisses. He did that. And then there came a time, I forget how old he was, maybe 2, when he'd start hugging like this. He'd kind of go like that, with like a kitty cat, with his, with his head like to my waist. And now he's a full blown. But even now, even though he's more comfortable hugging, there are some days when I leave and the next shift takes over, and his other grandparents will say, okay, go hug Bubby. And he'll come over and just do a high five. I'm just, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And it's fine. Yeah.
I feel, and I do the same thing with my kids and my grandkids, is here's an expression that my ex used to say, come over here and give me hugs.
Mhm.
It would be like, when I was married, I got resentful, because it's like, why am I coming over there to give you? If you want to, why aren't you coming over here to give me a hug? And so that with my daughters, I was like, I reframed that whole thing,
Yep.
and because we don't think about it, we get in these automatic ways of being in families, like you said, and we get in this automatic way of doing things. And something as simple as the way you ask is, here, let me give you a hug.
Or would you like to hug?
Right.
That's what I usually say is,
And
would you like to
you-
hug, or would you like to come cuddle on the couch? And sometimes he'll say yes, and sometimes he'll say no. When
But if
he's
it's
going
me-
off, yeah, go ahead.
But
I'm
if
sorry.
it's me wanting to extend it,
Mhm.
if
May I give you a
I'm
hug?
wanting a hug,
Right.
it's not right for me to ask, come over here and give me one,
Yeah, hug. Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
It's
Yep.
more appropriate
Mhm.
for me to say, can I give you a hug? Because that's me giving love versus taking love.
Right.
And that's, it's very vital for me
Mhm.
to put in that distinction.
Right. And it ties into something that we teach in Cuddle Party. I'm a certified Cuddle Party facilitator as well. And we talk about that too. There's an exercise that we do that revolves around kissing, and the answer has to be no. So one of the first icebreaker exercises that we do is you turn to somebody next to you and say, may I kiss you? And they have to say no. So there's no pressure, no threat. And then the second round is, will you kiss me? And that distinction is, and the answer still has to be no. The distinction is huge. The people miss that subtlety. May I extend something, whether it's a hug, a kiss, a gift to you, and you can either decide whether you want to accept it or not accept it. And the second is, you're offering that to me. May I hug, kiss, whatever, offer you time, energy, attention, and I get to decide whether I accept it. And it's not a rejection of the person. It might just be, I want to negotiate. No, I really like, again, taking it further in Cuddle Party, which is a I call it a communication boundary setting and safe nurturing touch workshop for adults. Further
Which
on in the
is so much
workshop,
better than a cuddle party,
right? Well, Cuddle Party is what it's called.
Right.
Cuddleparty.com is the website, but people think Cuddle Party, oh, that means I'm just going to jump in and big puppy pile with people.
It doesn't
But
say what it really,
the
depth and
that's how I
complexity that you
describe it.
offer.
Right. And it's the same thing. And I look at it as a lab setting, practice for daily life.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't facilitated. I haven't facilitated one since February of 2020, in the before times, I call it, like right before the pandemic was February of 2020. So I haven't officiated. I keep saying officiated. I'm a minister too. Facilitated. I haven't facilitated one in person since then. I've done a few virtually where we do some of the same kind of exercises, but not in the same room with other people. But it's a metaphor for life, because we get to decide what we offer to other people, and they get to decide what they're willing to accept from us, and vice versa. Yeah. So it's good practice. So this is not just about touch. Boundaries are about every aspect of our lives and our relationships.
And we weren't taught them. there's no, I mean, we had no ability to say no.
Mhm.
We were taught that whatever somebody asked of us, we were there to please them. We were there to make them happy. We were there to do for others. And I don't know about you, but it was kind of like, you know, what I wanted didn't really matter, you know, and even into the days of my first marriage, it was whatever. I mean, I had a great life, don't get me wrong. We flew, I was more or less like a pampered queen, you know, and at the same time, it was about him. It wasn't about me. It wasn't like when I would want some when I would want to do something like go to college and get a degree, there was more of like even my mother's era where my father told her that you don't need one, you know. And she was from that, she's 84, 85 now, and she was from that era that of women didn't go to college, women didn't have they depended upon the man, you know, they didn't have credit or didn't own things. And so then it sort of got generationally down to me, because, and I think this generation, my generation, your generation, we're breaking a lot of those ties with these things called consent, and it's subtly making, maybe not subtly, it's making a difference for like my daughters and the next generation, and then our grandkids. It's making a change in the way that we can show up and live with one another. What would you say from your mental health component plus your cuddle facilitating? How would you say you're seeing a difference in the world since like the Me Too movement, or since you started cuddle parties?
Yeah, well, first of all, with Cuddle Party, I became a certified facilitator in 2006. Cuddle Party created in 2004, by two relationship coaches, Reed Mahalko and Marcia Baczynski. I went to my first Cuddle Party in the spring of 2005. And at that point, I knew I wanted to do two things. I wanted to bring Cuddle Party to Philadelphia because this was in New York where they were living at the time. And I also wanted to become a facilitator, and they were just starting the trainings. So I was facilitator number 27, I think. Now
Wow.
there are maybe close to 200 people all over the world who've taken the training and are certified to teach it. And anything that's called Cuddle Party has to be the trademark workshop. Lots
Right.
of people call things cuddle parties that really aren't, but it's Cuddle Party, cuddleparty.com is the website. And I learned a lot about consent myself because I am a recovering codependent. I grew up in a family that was loving, nurturing, no major addictions. My father was a workaholic, but when he was home, he wasn't the babysitter, he was the daddy. My parents had, I would say, an egalitarian marriage. They were equal partners. My mother had credit. They only had one credit card. My mother worked for Sears, so they had a Sears credit card, no Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. And they would buy things on credit and then pay it off the next month. So they taught me about responsible spending, but they also taught me about being a codependent caregiver. My parents took care of their mothers as they aged. They were also, my father worked full time. He was initially a truck driver, milkman, and then a bus driver for SEPTA, for those in the Philadelphia area know what I'm talking about. And my mother worked from home as an Avon rep and had other part-time jobs while my sister and I were little. And then when we were old enough to be latchkey kids, she worked as a switchboard operator at Sears. So they modeled, an equal relationship. They modeled both parents being hands-on caregivers for the kids, but they also modeled volunteering. I don't know how they did it, how they had enough energy, but they were volunteers in their synagogue. My father was a firefighter. My mother volunteered at the hospital. She was a room mother for my sister and me when we were kids. They helped us sell our Girl Scout cookies. They transported us back and forth to swim meets, and swim team practice, and Hebrew school, and they made it look easy. So I became a workaholic. I became a codependent caregiver that looked out for everybody else's needs first. And it took me a long time. I had a heart attack in 2014. That was a wake-up call. And even then, it still wasn't enough to get me off the codependent train. It took some time and some practice. So I'm seeing now, and yes, the Me Too, #MeToo movement is a big part of it. We're learning that everybody has the right to body autonomy, body sovereignty. There's a wonderful YouTube video that I always recommend if people want to learn about consent. Look up tea, like drinking tea and consent. And what you'll see, have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
It's very cool. Check it out if you can.
I will, definitely.
Yeah, it's a narrated, animated little film, and maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And it equates the idea of tea and consent. So let's say somebody says, can I make you a cup of tea? And you say, sure, I would love a cup of tea. And they drink the tea. Doesn't mean they want the tea tomorrow. Doesn't mean they ever want tea again from you. And if somebody is unconscious, don't make them drink the tea. Unconscious people don't need tea. If you start to drink the tea and then say, you know what, I've had enough, I'm going to put the teacup down now. Don't force them to drink more tea. So you get the analogy,
yes,
right?
For sure.
And it's not just about sex. It's about any kind of touch, any kind of, there's a meme that I saw over the last few years, where this young boy goes to a family member or a friend and says, I just asked this girl out on a date and she said no. And the adult says, well, you know what to do now. And he says, yeah, keep asking. And the adult says, no, leave her alone.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
Right.
And
right.
And it's crazy because I have a 20-year-old, and some of the practices that it's like she wouldn't go to, like if somebody asked her to go to a football game with them, she wouldn't go. And I'm like, why won't you go? And she's like, because they expect something afterwards. They'll expect that because I went to the football game that I need to give them sex or something. And I'm like, holy crap, it's the expectation is so far greater than just going to a football game.
Well, it's transactional. If I do this for you, quid pro quo, you're going to do this for me. And it's not just her generation,
yeah.
we're as seasoned
For sure.
women. I've experienced that. I'm sure you have.
Big time.
And nobody, that's the other thing that I talk about in the TEDx talk. Nobody owes another person access to their touch. It's a gift.
It's totally
That's
a
it.
gift.
Yep.
And
Nobody,
the level of the touch is determined by the giver. Not by the receiver. The
right.
level of touch should be always determined by the giver. And even if somebody's been married to somebody for 20 years, it's never should be, predetermined or, we're transactional, or how much of a transaction.
Yeah, and I encourage parents to teach their children, regardless of gender, that not only does no mean no, but only a hell yes means yes.
Yes.
And you get to change your mind. That, again, Cuddle Party rules. If you look on the Cuddle Party website, you'll see the Cuddle Party rules, and that's one of them. Is that, not only does no mean no, but only yes means yes. And you're encouraged to change your mind if you want to. Yeah, and it sounds confusing, right? But it's crystal clear. And it doesn't mean I hate your guts, I don't want you to touch me. It just means for this moment, I've had enough. Like I could be cuddling on the couch with my grandson. And again, he'll be 3 next week, and he'll move away, and I'll say, I won't say, oh, come on back. I'll say, okay, have fun. See you later. Lucy and I will be sitting. Lucy's my granddaughter. We're going to be sitting here on the couch. If you want to come back and cuddle with us, we're here.
Yeah.
So, and he'll come back and he'll come, he'll go back and forth,
And given that ability to make those choices at such a young age is so imperative.
Right.
Let's change the subject for just a minute and talk about this hug mobster.
Yep.
Let's get into this. I just love it. I used to watch you with the signs, and you'd post on social media and I'd be like, yes, she's out there spreading her hugs. So tell me about
Valentine's Day weekend, 2014, February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, I invited a group of friends to join me at 30th Street Station, which is a big train station in Philadelphia. And I said, let's do a free hugs flash mob. So there were a dozen of us. And at noon, a friend of ours named Ron had his guitar, and he breaks out in song. The song "Give a Little Bit." Give a little bit, give a little bit of your love to me. And he must have played it like 100 times in an hour, just walking around the train station. And another friend of ours, Rod, R-O-D, was videotaping it. And we would approach people and say, would you like a hug? And we'd have our signs. And one of our friends, Ruthann, had a sign that instead of saying free hugs, it said pro bono hugs, which I thought was pretty cute. She's a wordsmith. So, so we would approach people. Most people said yes. Some people said no. And we said, okay, that's cool, no problem. I also observed certain cultural dynamics. We live in an area where there aren't a lot, but there are Amish people, and there was a family sitting on a bench waiting for the train, and we approached them and they said no, thank you. The one person that stood out for me was somebody who approached us when he saw our signs, and he was an Iraq war vet, and I talk about this in the TEDx talk. And he said, I'm the only survivor of my platoon, and I've thought about killing myself until I met you people because you give me hope. Can I join you? So we gave him his sign and he went off hugging people. And I have no clue what happened to this man. I don't know whether he survived. I don't know what he's doing with his life. But after that, I thought, oh my goodness, hugs save lives. So that was in February. In June of 2014, I was on my way home from the gym, and I'd been working out 5 or 6 times a week. And usually in the evening, but this was a morning, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, I think. And I started having heart attack symptoms. Now, women's symptoms are very different from men's. It's not usually the left. This is my left side. Yeah. Not usually the left chest, like kind of, but it was jaw pain. Like somebody went like that. I couldn't move my jaw, torrential sweats. And I said, I cooled down after my workout, but it was like that if you have a heavy duty workout. Searing heartburn pain, front and back, palpitations, dizziness, lightheadedness. And people who know me wouldn't be surprised at this. I didn't go straight to the hospital. I drove home, picked up the phone, and I called my office, and I was working as a counselor in an outpatient drug and alcohol treatment program. People with their own addictions, and my addiction was workaholism. And I said, I'm not feeling very well. Can you cancel my clients for today? Hung up. I could have picked up the phone and called. I don't know why I'm going like this because it's a cell phone. I don't have a landline. And I could have called 911, but I didn't. I said, the hospital's only 5 minutes away. I can drive myself. Don't ever do that, folks. Don't ever drive yourself to the hospital in the midst of a heart attack.
When you're in the process of having a heart attack.
No.
Person in our town just did and hit the side of a building, and it's scary. So
I made it. I must have had guardian angels watching over me, and I stumbled through the doorway, and I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. They got me up to the cardiac cath lab, and within an hour, I had a stent inserted. I had a fully occluded LAD, the major artery, the widowmaker whole thing. Yeah. And I thought about it. I said, I'm already a widow. I don't want to, I don't want to be an orphan, have it be an orphan maker. Because my son was, I forget how old he was at the time. He was in his late 20s at the time. And they inserted a stent. And what happens, my mother, I'm genetically predisposed. My mother died of congestive heart failure. My sister has had 2 heart attacks. I was working myself crazy hours, 12 to 14 hours a day, sleeping maybe 5 or 6 hours a night. I was working with people in severe need, and I didn't know how to say no. So I crashed and burned. And friends came to visit me there. And these are friends who are, I wouldn't say like family, they are, family of choice. And Janet said, I demand to talk to your social worker. This person needs to know what your life is like and insist that you take 2 weeks off of work. One is not enough. And Phil, who was her husband, who has since died, unfortunately, leaned over my bed, and was from New York. And he says, you go back to work next week, I come over and break both your legs. And I waited 2 weeks before I went back to work. And it's still, it's still a big deal to me to think, oh my God, I had a heart attack. So as part of my cardiac rehab, I walked around Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is a little town near me. And I said, why don't I combine the hugging with the walking? And I'll do free hug strolls. So I made up signs and I invited people to join me. Sometimes they did, and I would do them for special occasions like holidays. But then I started saying, oh, you know what? I'm going to keep signs in the car and just do it spontaneously. And that's what I started doing. So since then, I've done them at Pride Fests, at music events, at sporting events. When I visited friends in Canada a few years ago, I brought my signs with me. But the coolest one was in May of 2018. I took my trip of a lifetime to Ireland, and I had my sign with me. And I got to meet some amazing people along the way. And one of them, which again, I talk about in the TED Talk, was probably 18, 19, maybe 20-year-old young man, shirtless, dreads down to here. And he was blowing these huge bubbles in Ayr Square Park in Galway. Have you ever been to Galway or to Ireland at all?
I've been to Scotland, not to Ireland.
Okay. So this was a really cool little park. And so I hugged him, and then I went on my way. And then on my way back through, he says, come here, come here. And I said, what? And he says, I've got patchouli oil on and I want to get some on you. And he starts rubbing his head up against me like a kitty cat. So I have a picture of the two of us there too. So that was probably my most memorable hug in Ireland. And when the pandemic hit, and I right before the pandemic, like a year or so before, I got a lot of media coverage, like local, national media coverage, Women's World, Women's Day, our local newspapers, our local NPR station. And then bam, the pandemic hit and everything shut down. And I thought, I went into a panic. I said, what if we can never hug again? And I said, okay, universe, God, how is that possible? How can you make people hardwired for touch and then have that be taken away from us? So I had a dream in which in the beginning we could hug back to back or back to front like spooning. And that's how I started inching my way back to it. And I don't do the big events now, but I'm out there hugging people on occasion. So I'm looking forward to a day when I can do full-blown free hugs events. And I, again, talked about a lot about that in the TEDx talk as well.
How do you feel from your experience with the cuddle parties, your experience with your hug mobster, and you're seeing things through the lens and the eyes of someone in social work, and really taking a look at this pandemic and how it has affected. How do you see, and what are maybe, I don't know if you know any of the statistics, but how has it caused the lack of touch, the lack of, because I had a man one time come to me that had been married to his wife for 50 years and his wife died. And when I was doing massage on a regular basis, he came and I saw him at one of those like health fair type things. And he was like really reluctant and everything, but he hadn't been touched in like 5 years since his wife had died. And when I just put my hand on his hand, the tears started coming. And then I introduced him to a place where he could get hugs, which was at a Unity church. And he became like just a real big, you would see him at every event, everything, because, you know, he had so many hugs to give. He had the freedom to express and receive. And so how do you find that we as a world, we as a nation, are suffering because of the lack of touch and like, are suicides increasing? Is
Yep, loneliness, suicidality, addiction, all of those, I can't give you numbers, but all of those have increased since the pandemic started. We are hardwired for touch. I've heard the term skin hunger, because our skin is our single largest organ.
yes.
And you mentioned not having been touched for 5 years. Doing free hugs at a veterans homeless shelter, there was a man that I was hugging said, I haven't been touched in 20 years. That's a little less than a third of my life. As you know, at 64, I haven't been touched in 20 years. So I, let him be the first one to let go. And throughout the time that I was there with friends, I said, you want more? And he came back for more hugs. And people are often afraid to ask for it. They don't want to feel needy. They don't want to feel clingy. But if you can be part of a community, where there is a healthy touch menu, like certain faith communities or certain volunteer communities, do it by all means. The other thing I didn't mention that I do is free mom hugs. Have you ever heard of them?
No, but I saw that in your.
Yeah, Sarah Cunningham is a mom in Oklahoma City, and I think around 2014, her son came out to her as a gay man, and Sarah was an evangelical Christian at the time, so she had this incredible spiritual and moral dilemma that she was contending with. She said, "How can I choose between God and my son?" And she realized she didn't have to choose. That it was more about her church than it was God, and she left her church and went to a more affirming kind of church. And her son invited her to a Pride Fest in Oklahoma City, and she made up a button that said "Free Mom Hugs," and she offered hugs to the people there. And some of them said, my mom, my dad didn't hug me when I came out to them. And she said by the end of the event, she was covered in tears and glitter. And she said, I've got something here. So she became an ordained minister. She marries same-sex couples, and she is a stand-in mom at same-sex weddings. She says, if your mom won't be there, I will, and I'll even bring the bubbles. So I don't know how many weddings she's attended. Jamie Lee Curtis got a hold of her story, and they're making a film about it. And they look quite a bit alike. So I thought that was really cool. So I have my t-shirt that says "Free Mom Hugs." And when I've gone to Pride Fest, I've had people cry in my arms and say the same thing. And hugs in that particular case are tremendously life-saving.
Tremendously. And I'd love to see a dad say "free dad."
There is. There are men that have to do free dad hugs too.
Yeah, because the one thing in all of is we want to be loved and we want to give love, underneath all the layers. And one sure way to express love is through a hug. And I'm like one that is really the full embrace, and when somebody wants it, the full embrace, not the pat, 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 disconnected.
Yeah.
I will accept those and try not to judge them. And I'm
sorry,
but
right. No, I feel the same
way.
It's
like I like a full handshake, and I like some substance to it, and that's just me. But I feel that if just like a smile offers, somebody just can change a person's life if you offer a smile or you say something kind. If you can and always ask and always respect the other person. But if you can say, can I hug you? Can I give you a hug? Would you like a hug? You know, some of these phrases, it's life changing. And I know, I love how you offered some ideas of how we could do this in a pandemic kind of way. You could do even a
elbow,
elbow
right,
bump, or
right.
you know,
I've seen people do like toe taps, like they'll reach out their foot and do a toe tap. You do a virtual hug where you hug yourself, and you make eye contact with the other person and you smile, even if you're wearing a mask. That was hard for me during initially in the pandemic, because my grandson was born January 21st of 2020. He was the best thing that happened to our family that year. And I was there pretty much every day in the beginning. And then in March, bam, 11 weeks went by and I didn't touch another human being for 11 weeks. The first mammal that I touched, I was visiting my cousin sitting in her backyard, and she was way up on her deck and I was in the middle of the yard on a fold-out chair, and her dog Maddie kept running back and forth between us. Aww. And she's a chocolate lab, and she was muddy, and I didn't care. So I was hugging this dog. So I think that's, find ways, even if you're still not comfortable hugging other people, hug pillows, hug stuffed animals, hug trees, do self-massage. Even if you're just, I'm a Reiki master, so yeah. My hands are always charged up. So rub your hands together, hold your own hands, hold your face like this, or hold your heart.
And find the appropriate, I'm a very sensory, to where I do a lot of sensual and sensory training with people. And not everybody likes light touch.
Right.
Some people like
firmer,
find your own.
Yep.
Find what it is that you like. Do you like to be really embraced? Then embrace yourself. And like you said, virtual energy is energy. And I can hug you right now.
I can feel it.
And I can send love and really give you, we were doing massages on people during the pandemic virtually.
Yep.
Because you don't, and that's why, virtual healing is so, because we are connected. Doesn't matter if we're in the same place. Yep. I can touch my hand and I can give you touch from there. So it's not like the same, it's not like the real thing. Mm-hmm. And it is like the real thing. It will help you to make I remember when my mother was so toxic in her body that she was hurting so bad. She had fibromyalgia, and I couldn't touch her body in massage. I would have to come like here and start working all on the energy that was above her. And then I got to the point where it's like I could dig in. But just start somewhere. Just start somewhere where you are comfortable. If you haven't been touched in a long time, to go full blown into a cuddle party may not be the thing that you are ready for, because it may be, too much. So I just encourage, and maybe you have some tips also that I'd love to hear of how to get somebody making the first step. How would you suggest them?
Well, first of all, again, I haven't facilitated a cuddle party since before the pandemic, and I'm still not comfortable with that, but there are people that are doing it. So you can look on the Cuddle Party website, cuddleparty.com, and see who might be doing them. But I encourage people to get outside their homes, first of all, take a walk, be in nature, hug trees. If you have animals in your life and they'll let you hug them. And with the people that you're most comfortable, if there was a hug, a touching connection before, ask, can I come over? If you have cuddle buddies, people that you can just snuggle with, even without a sexual interaction, do that. If you if you're not comfortable with that, do eye gazing, because you can hug through your eyes. If you were talking, as you were talking about distance healing, I'm grateful for the marvels of modern technology. So you can have a Zoom conversation with somebody where you can imagine, sending energy to each other. And again, I'm not talking about about phone sex or anything like, I mean, to each his own if that's what you want, but I'm talking about platonic, consensual energy healing. You can do that. Again, not the same. And I'm not a medical professional. I can't advise people about masks, unmasked touch. I can't advise them about, whether it's safe to hug. That's an individual choice that you make. I do know that the risks are lower now that there are vaccines, that the numbers of new COVID diagnoses are lower than they were in the very beginning of the pandemic. So again, it's this is about choice too. It's an individual choice about your comfort level, but just listen to your heart, listen to your body when it comes to that. And one of the things that I realized in the beginning of the pandemic is even if we couldn't touch, we can still love. And that's huge. That energy from the heart healing is huge.
Very good. So Edie, if people want to reach out to you, want to know more about, they loved what they heard, I will be putting in the comments of the show, I will be putting in your links and your TED Talk and that, but tell people how you work with people.
Okay.
Do you work with people?
Well, I do. I mean, I'm a psychotherapist in a group practice, so there are particular protocols. Like I'm licensed to practice in Pennsylvania as a therapist, so you have to be in Pennsylvania to work with me in therapy. I do have a Psychology Today link, EDIEWEINSTEIN, if people are interested in my therapeutic services. Again, if you're in Pennsylvania. I do coaching. I'm not a licensed coach, but I've been a therapist long enough to understand the difference between coaching and psychotherapy. That it's goal directed. There's an endpoint. It's not, although issues come up, people's issues come up in coaching. I am also a journalist, so I'm always looking for places to be, to get my writing out and be compensated for it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm what else? So anyway, I've got a website. It's www.opti-mystical, mystical.com, optimistical. And where that came from is either in a dream or a meditation, the voice, not a psychotic voice, but spiritual voice said, you're not just an optimist, you're an optimistic who sees the world through the eyes of possibility. So I encourage that. I have a Facebook page, again, under my name, EDIEWEINSTEIN, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And as we close, because this is near and dear
Valentine's
to my heart, is talk just a brief little thing about what you see for the future of Muses.
You and I have had this conversation too about what a muse is. And for me, first of all, muse is an inspiration. I like the term inspirista, that I'm an inspirista and so are you. We inspire people to live rich, full, juicy lives. And when I think of a muse, it's somebody who is a coach, is the wind beneath your wings, is a guide that helps you bring out the best in you. So I think the future is wide open for that you are, be your own muse and work with other people. And a muse doesn't have to be a woman. It could be a person of any gender that helps you bring out your purpose, your passion, whether you monetize it or whether you just do it for fun, helps the juiciness flow.
Yes. Yeah. Terrific. Well, Edie, it has been such a joy to hear about what you're doing in the world, hear about the wonderful, as we hear over and over in the world right now, we need the soft skills. And I see you have so much of the the soft skills that the world needs, those abilities to connect, those abilities to change relationships and to really engage in new and different ways. So thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you for really just warming my heart in so many ways in this conversation. So I appreciate you. Namaste.
Pleasure. It's mutual. Namaste. And hugs.
Hugs. Oh, great hugs. All right, everyone.
Bye.
Till the next episode, we want to thank you for being here. Thank you for, allowing us to have this conversation, and for you really giving us the space and the time to show up and allow this message to bring some kind of, I hope that it brings some kind of way for you to think a little differently, act a little differently, and by all means, go spread more hugs and more love in the world. All right. Enjoy your day.